Yo, how's it going, folks? It's me again, your boy Tabo, and today's lesson on SVG for the web is going to be about animations. So I'm not going to explain much. I'm just going to jump right into it, and I'll show you as I go. Okay, first we're going to start with creating a file, and we'll call it animations.html. Okay, create our HTML file, and then our SVG. Get some width, 100% as usual, and then height. Okay, so I'm going to create a path. I'm just going to give it some value. I'm going to name it green hex because it's going to be a green hexagonal shape. So the point will be, say, DM 50 50, H will be 100, say L 125, 100, let's say L 100, 150, let's say H 50, L 25, and then 100. No, say Z. Okay, so I will fill it, give it a filling green, since it is green hex, and then I will do that. Okay, over here I will then close the path. Okay, now usually when I'm just creating a path, I would just use one tag. Like I wouldn't use an opening tag and a closing tag. But in this case, because we're going to be applying animations, and this is how you would do it. So in between here, this is where you're going to add your animation tag. So in this case, we're going to use an animate transform. So this is going to help us animate some transform attributes. Okay, so we're going to start with saying animate transform. And this is another type of animation that you can apply. There are different other animations that you can apply, and I will show you. So animate transform is exactly that. It just animates your transform attributes, but nothing else. So if you want to transform, or if you want to animate other attributes, then you would use a different animation tag. Okay, so let's just do this. So what I need to specify is the attribute, name. Okay, that is the name of the attribute that I want to animate. So I want to animate my transform attribute. Okay, another one that I have to specify is attribute type. Attribute type, and that would be XML. Okay, the next one will be, and then the type is rotate, because I want to animate the rotation of this path. And so we've got from. Now what from means is that it's just where the animation is going to start. So whatever starting point I want my animation to start from, this is what I specify with from. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding the attributes. Because I want my path to be rotated 360 degrees. So I'm gonna start it from 0. Okay, so it's gonna start at 0 degrees, and then it will animate from 0 degrees to 360. Okay, so that's what that means. So I'm gonna specify here 360, and then we've got another command which is duration, DUR. And what that stands for is how long do you want your animation to play out. Okay, so DUR stands for duration. And so another command that we're going to use is repeat count. Repeat count it determines how many times your animation is going to play out. So you can give it a number, or if you want it to just play infinitely, then you can say indefinite. so it will just play on an infinite amount of times non-stop. Okay, so we're going to close the animation. Then we're going to open this up on our favorite browser just to have a look at what this looks like. Oh, awesome. Now look at our rotation right there. Doesn't that look great? So I'm gonna explain why that is. Now here I gave the degrees, right? I specified the amount of degrees that I wanted to rotate, but the problem is the origin. If I think in the last episode I did explain how that would work, because what's happening right now is that it's rotating from this point, right? And so that is not good because I want it to rotate from the center. So if I want it to be accurate, then I would have to basically move the anchor or the center point to the exact point where I want it to be, so to the center of the shape. And so we're gonna work out what the values for that are. So we're gonna try out 75 by 100. So what this means is this is the x and the y axis, so it will be 75 units from the left and then 100 units from the top. So that's basically what that is. So the only thing that's going to be changing is this right here, the amount of degrees that it's going to be rotating. Okay, there you go. So now we've got our rotation. And once again, another tool that you should always use in these cases in terms of applying transformation is your group tag. Now the group is very useful because you might want to move this thing around, and yes, like I said, you know, don't want to find yourself having to change values over and over again. Whoa. Okay, say transform equals to translate. Okay, so I want to move it, let's say 500, then just 100 units. Okay, maybe I want to scale it also a little bit, so I'll just give it a scaling of 4, see what that's like. Okay, too much. Okay, so there we go. So that's our path, right? If I want to, I can also give it a stroke, say equals, whoa, sorry, my bad. Stroke, and then I will give it let's say I'll give it a color of black, and we'll say stroke width, and I'll just make it 4. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got our shape, and now we've got a nice little animation going there. If I wanted, I could also add another animation to it. Okay, so if you wanted to animate a different attribute, then we would just duplicate this, and then I would just change these, some of the values. Okay, so I'll just, if you're not familiar with HTML, this is how you comment out tags or whatever it is that you want to comment out. You use angle bracket, exclamation mark, dash dash, and then on the end 2 dashes, and then close the angle bracket. Okay, so now we're going to change this to translate. Say translate, and then we want to animate the x value, so we'll say 0, and then we'll say 450, still say 0 there. Okay, so there we go. So that's our translation, that's animated. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I will do is I'll just copy this whole thing, paste it right here. Maybe we'll give this one a different name. We'll say orange hex. Wait, sorry, this is not a good way to do it. I'll just rather okay, I just copied the whole group. I'm gonna give this different name. I'll call it orange hex. So I'm gonna change the filling to orange here so that we can distinguish between the two. Orange. And yeah, what we're gonna do is I'm basically just gonna delete that. Okay, and then over here I'm just gonna delete that. So that's what we have here. Okay, should be fine. Let me see if everything is okay here. Let's do it like that. Okay, so it's one tag. So all of these, they basically animate different values. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, cool. So I can just move this down. I'll say 700. I'll just say 200. Yeah, maybe 3. Okay, so there we go. So we've got our orange hex, our green hex, and they're both nicely animated. So what we did here, yes, we animated the transform. So now we're gonna try another kind of animation where we're gonna basically animate some of the attributes. Okay, so in this case, this is how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna create another path. Okay, so let me just kind of make some space here, get a bit all organized. Alright, so I'm gonna create another path. Also, I'll put it in a group to make my life easy. Okay, so let's say path, and then I'll give this path an ID. I'll say just path, I'll call it path 2. Okay, so now I'm gonna start giving it values. So I'll say b is equal to, and I'm gonna copy this because I'm gonna create another hexagon. And then this one, I will give it a filling of, let's say, violet. Well, let's just do this. Save time. Okay, so that's that. No, that's not that, because I want to create animation on it, so I should then create 2 tags, a close and opening tag and a closing tag. Okay, so, and that's what that looks like. And this is an opening tag and this is a closing tag with angle bracket / path and then closing angle bracket. Okay, so now we're gonna add our animation. So I'm gonna create another tag which is called animate. Instead of animate transform, it's just plain animate, and this requires you to state the attribute name just like the other one. So say the attribute name, and this time what I would like to do is animate the stroke. Alright, but before I can do that, if you can remember the lesson on strokes, then there are the different types of styles that you can apply to strokes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply a style and then I'm gonna animate the style. So what I'm gonna add here is a stroke dash array. Okay, so I'll say stroke dash array. Well, this is because I want to animate the stroke. This is it works better with the stroke dash array. Well, this is how you would actually do it. I've tried other ways and it didn't work, but this is the way that you would go about it. So I'll say dash array equals, so I'm gonna give it a 0. and then I'll say 300, right? Now these are the offset values. Okay, so when it's 0 here, it will not display any strokes. So what it means that is that there is no, it's holding it back, like it's been offset by 300 value. So basically it's invisible. There's nothing that you will see there. And then you will see when the animation starts what that actually means. Then I'm gonna start to then animate it. I'll say stroke dash array. This is the attribute name that I want to animate. Then the next one will be values. So I just have to state the values that I would like to animate, and I separate the values with a semicolon. So where the animation will start and the different transitions between the animations, I just separate those with the semicolon. Okay, but it's similar to to and from. So it'll go from this state to that state to this value to that value. So it's like creating an array of different values that I would like to be animated. Okay, let me just show you. So since here it's 0 and 300, this is my starting point. So this is where my animation is gonna start. Then I'll create a semicolon, and what I want it to do, then I want it to go from 0 to 300. Okay, so what it's doing is just turning this around. So since here it's 0 and here it's 300, it will then turn around. It will basically slowly throughout the animation, it will increment this to 300, and then it will decrement this to 0, and then you will see a nice animation play out. Okay, so animate has also duration, so we have to give the value for duration. I would like to play this for 6 seconds, so that's my duration right there. And once again, repeat count, we used that previously. So these are the different values that you can apply for animations. So when you animate anything, these are typical values that you'll be getting: your duration, repeat count, type from, to, duration. So all of these are the things that you would always have to specify, or that you would have to state whenever you're creating your animation. So I'm going to declare my repeat count to be indefinite. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm gonna close this guy right here. Okay, so let me have a look. Let's look at my transforms. I'll just copy that, paste, move it down 500. Maybe I should scale these things down so that we can have enough space. Okay, so let's take a look. You see, here's our animation right here. Maybe what I can do is just make it slightly bigger, so that, I mean, I can also just still zoom into it. That's always the easiest. So I'm gonna move it by 600. Okay, so here's our animation here. So that's playing quite nicely. Okay, so I'm gonna create a path. Okay, so I will say path, and then I will plot out the point of the path. I'll say M 280, and then I'll say C minus 50 280, and then I'll say another minus 50 minus 120 200 80, and say C 450 280 450, say minus 120, and say 280, then we close the path. Okay, and then I'll give it a stroke color of gray, and I will give it also an ID, and then I will call it track. Okay, Let's have a look, see what okay, so there we go, we have our path over there. I also want to remove any filling, so I'll say fill equals to none. Now as you can see, I did not close my path here, but it still showed. That would happen, but if I had then another path that I draw here, then it would not work. So that could happen sometimes. I forgot to add to close the tag and it still worked, but usually it will not. If you then have other tags that follow, then it's just going to create a mess. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these tags to define instead. So I don't want my path to show, but I wanted it to be in between the defs tag. So I'm just going to leave it there so it won't be visible, but then I'm going to reference it later. So let's take our path and then just put it in there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use one of these paths, so I'm just gonna copy that. I'm also gonna add it here. I'll remove all of this. I don't need any of that. I just want to use the path, that's all. So I'll give it an ID of, I'll call it red hex. Okay, so I'm also going to reference this. So I'll be using this path and that one to create my animation. Okay, so now that I've got that, then I will create a use tag. I'll say use. Then I'll say href is equal to. So now I want to create my animation. Okay, so I want to use a red hex in order to create my animation. So I will give it a filling of red, so that, yes, that makes sense. And then I will give it a stroke of blue. And then let's say the stroke width will be 2. So that's that. Okay, so now we close that. So inside here, this is where we're going to then create the motion path. Okay, so I'm going to create a tag called animate motion. This is what I'm going to use to create an animation along a path. So I'll say animate motion. And then in here, then I have to specify the attributes that I want to animate and the duration. So I'll say duration is equal to, I'll say 8 seconds. Okay, this is how long I want my animation to play out. And I'll say repeat duration. This is almost similar to repeat count. It does the same thing, but it's called repeat duration. So I'll say indefinite also. So I just wanted to keep on playing. And then there's another one, rotate. What this means is I'm going to set it to auto, but it determines when your object would rotate. So as you're moving along the path, your object will be facing a certain direction forward. But if you don't have rotate on auto, then it will not know how to rotate whenever it changes direction. But when you set it on auto, then it will automatically rotate it for you so that you're always looking forward. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So now we've got that. So what I'm gonna do now is, so I've got my animate motion, that's done. Okay, so we've got that. So and then inside, then we have to then specify the path that we want to use, and we use mpath for that. So also href is equal to, and so the name of my path is track. So I'm going to use track. And then I close it. So now I know which path I want to use, and so now I have to then close this, animate motion. Okay, so there we go. So let's check out what our animation looks like. Okay, no animation. Oh yes, sorry, I did not specify that. So there it is there, but it looks weird because you can't actually see the path. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is, in order to fix this mess, I'm gonna have to move things around a bit so that we have better order. So once again, I'm gonna have to take this back down. See, 650, let's try 450, and over here let's try 150. Okay. Okay, fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this path. No, it's not. Okay, so now we've got our path over there. So I will take then all these values, and then just put them there so that everything is a bit close to each other. Okay, so my path, still got these values over there. For empath, I remove this. Still using track, right, indefinite. Okay, so let's have a look now. Okay, you see what's happening, but the movements are off. Okay, I'm gonna use something different. I'll use a polygon instead to better illustrate this, because this one is a bit of a headache. Yeah, since I started this lesson, don't want to take forever trying to figure out how to get it to work properly. I'll leave that up to you. So basically I'm just gonna create a square shape. So I'll say -8 and then 0. I'll say 0, then -8. So I'll say 8 and then 0, 0 and then 8. Okay, so I give it a stroke of red and they fill of blue. Actually, it's all the way around. That should be red and that should be blue. Okay, so let's say stroke width 2. Fine. Okay, so then I'll be using red hex there and track. Okay, fine. Okay, so there you can see this is a little bead over here, and this is running along the path, okay, that I created. Can make the path, let's give it a different color. Let's make it like cyan, my favorite color. So there we go. So that's a lot more visible. So this is how you would then animate along a path. First you create the path, and then you create the object that you would like to animate along the path. And then after that, then you, well, if you have just defined it, then you will have to use the use tag. If not, then you will just have to use the element as it is, and then add the animate motion inside that element over there. So this is how it would work. You say use, so you would choose your shape there, and then you would create the empath, which specifies which path you want to use to animate your object along, and then you specify how long you want it to animate, the repeat duration, how often you want it to animate, and then your rotate auto, which does this for you. You know, it's always pointing forward, so it just automatically rotates with the path. If this was not set, then it would have a weird rotation. See, I'm not 100% sure if this is the default setting. You see it's not. See what it's doing? It's just moving, but it doesn't have any rotation. So for instance, if you're animating a car, then you want your car to then rotate with the motion instead of having it facing one direction the whole time. Even when it's moving along the path, it's always facing the one direction. That would not make for a realistic animation. So that's what would happen if you don't set your rotate. See, it's just static, it's not moving. But then if I go back, save that, then you can see then it's rotating along the path. So yeah, that's the difference. That's how that works. And then you've got our nice animation over here. Then here you're translating, you're animating your translation. Here the animation is for the rotation. So yeah, this is what I'm gonna teach you for this lesson. So you can play around, you can animate different attributes. If you wanted, you could animate the color of the filling or the color of the stroke. You could animate the size. You can animate anything that you want. So just play around, see what interesting animations you can create. Then once you get comfortable, then we'll meet each other in the next lesson. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. Love and peace, my brothers and sisters, till the next one. I'm out. If you thought this video was good and helpful, please press that like button. For any questions or input, just remember to leave a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe to my channel and I'll keep more stuff coming your way.